Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Flex25 from SpeedyBee, and I'm intentionally holding it up this way so you can see that the props overlap because SpeedyBee has done something different, and I always applaud companies at least for trying something different because, you know, we only have 4 arms, 4 motors, cameras. We have the typical stuff, so different at least expands the hobby, and you can see the props overlap. So what they have done is essentially giving us the smallest package running a 2.5 inch prop, and that's pretty cool. But is it all roses? And one of the things I think that I kind of always wonder about these things is how many of you are looking at cinewhoop, something with prop guards, but not a traditional whoop like this, something that's bigger. And are you actually just wanting to do the slow, cruisy sort of capture your flight sort of footage, or do you fly them in multiple ways? Because in this video, I'll be showing several different flight styles. The brains and the flight controller down inside here, which allows us to run overlapping props in a staggered motor configuration, is the SpeedyBee F745. It's a 35 amp all-in-one. And this one also has some interesting features in that they did put the USB port on top, as well as a connector over here for all your HD camera recordings. And yes, it can control your external cameras, although I won't say I've tested them all. On the 2 that I did test, it did work out just fine. For use of the USB port, you do need to plug in a battery in order to get the USB port to work. Otherwise, that all-in-one has Bluetooth, so you can just use your phone and the SpeedyBee app to do your PID tuning or rate changes, what have you, in the field. This is a good shot on how you can see those staggered motors, and the motors are 1404, 4500 kV motors. So in this quad, we're running 4S. They do have a nice gold finish, and they did use blue. The props it comes with are the Gemfan D63, tri-bladed props, and those again are 2.5 inch props. Underneath this TPU print is the TX800, which is an 800 milliwatt SpeedyBee VTX. Note the MMC-X connector back there, and of course it's got a SpeedyBee antenna. Battery connector is an XT30, and there is a capacitor underneath there. We have what looks to be a Kevlar SpeedyBee battery strap, which is good, but the frame's cut for it to run this way, but maybe you run it either way. But I think if you run the battery strap through these sides, you're going to be very limited in your battery size. Nice little touches right here on the top and the bottom, kind of with the branding and the carbon fiber. Of course, it comes with an LED around here, and I turn that on, but it blows out my camera. It is really bright. Thankfully, you can control whether it's on or off with this little switch right back here. I have the Express LRS version, but I didn't originally. More on that later. In the case of Express LRS, mine shipped with the Axis Flying Thor receiver for Express LRS. Battery mat is textured and rubberized and relatively thick, which is good to see. Even this tall motor over here, it's pretty stiff and solid on there. As is the entire frame, really. If you try to bend this thing, the frame is super stiff. You can get some flex with the prop guard protection, and as you can see here, I have had some crashes, but the prop protection's in good shape actually. Mine came with these extra 3D prints, but I think these are used if you get the digital version with the Caddx Vista Air Unit Lite, or maybe the RunCam Link. You know what I'm saying, the digital FPV video. It does come with several different sets of screws. This screw that's right down here and these nuts that are made to go through there, I couldn't thread those to save my life, so I pulled the screw out of my own and did use their nut. I have a feeling that these are the wrong size. They wouldn't even get started on the threading, so hopefully that was just an initial run issue. Of course, we got a couple of antenna tubes here, but you might not need those. And we've got the different connectors that go right here in order to control your external HD camera and its recording functions. Hopefully they'll all work, but I can only tell you I test a naked GoPro 6 as well as the SMO4K, and it worked out just fine after I figured out what was going on. It weighs about 148.5 grams. In the battery testing I did, I found that the optimal cruisy flight time was with this G&B 720 milliamp 4S battery, which did yield me over 4 minutes of flight. And with that battery, it weighs almost 217 grams. And if we add the SMO4K, we're 249 grams. And for reference, the 850, I actually got almost a full minute less flight. I know that doesn't make sense to some of you, but sometimes when you add weight, you've overwhelmed the prop and the amount of thrust, and you're actually consuming more energy. So with an 850, you get less flight time. And with that 850, it weighs just over 217 grams. For the faster, more testing the speed as well as the agility of the quad in a more traditional format, I use this G&B 650 milliamp 4S battery, and with that battery, it weighs 218 grams. And with the SMO4K, I get 250 grams, 0.06, so within a margin of error of under 250, right? Carbon fiber is 3 millimeters thick. SpeedyBee says this is 78 millimeters, and I'd have to say, yeah, I'm getting real close to that too. Motor post to motor post. To get those props a touch further off the ground, they've added these little feet to the bottom of the prop protection, which I think is a good thing. Unfortunately, that's it. No stickers. Okay, we're going to start off with what it's pretty much designed for, which is slow, cruisy sort of flight. But if you follow the channel, you know that I like to test these things in a more traditional manner. Say if you're out flying one of these and you need to go faster. Or maybe all of a sudden you're seeing an opportunity for hard turns and still getting your shot. Maybe you're chasing a car. All sorts of possibilities and reason why you might want to see that. So I'm going to break this up and kind of break my typical format, which is to show full flights. We're going to break this into segments, and I'm going to play about a minute and a half of each particular segment. And something about this that, well, you know, out of the box it caught my eye that, you know, we have these staggered motors or motors at a different heights, and we have overlapping props. I was very much concerned about having stability issues on such a small wheelbase and with those other factors, but I found it to be quite smooth. This is straight out of the SMO 4K. This is not run through the Insta360 Studio for stabilization. This is just from the camera, dropped it straight into the editor and just let it run. So what you see is what I was getting at the time. It's no editing work is being done to this footage. It is quite calm on this particular day, so that's a good thing. If you know the channel, I talk about the wind oftentimes because, you know, when you live in flyover country, we oftentimes have a lot of winds. The backyard, as far as the construction, the details are changing, but you probably don't notice a lot of changes, you know, from a distance. There's little things going on. And we should have countertops going in next week. Electrical should be finished up this week. But that's enough. I've talked a lot about the construction in the backyard. It's kind of consumed our lives. That's over a minute, probably closer to a minute and a half of the footage, straight from the SMO 4K, no stabilization, just out trying to fly very smooth. I should mention that out of the box this does come with Expo, and I did use the Expo for this particular flight, but when I tried to fly it more aggressively, I could not adjust to the Expo, so I took the 0.5 of Expo that was on all axis. I took that out for my more aggressive flying. It didn't seem to help because I was still crashing quite a bit, but that's not the quad's fault. I just think that I was trying to fly it like I would anything else, and it does have a small prop, small wheelbase, carrying lots of weight, especially when I was flying it at that 250 gram marker with the SMO 4K on it as well. All right, smoking hot day. The flight audio that you're listening to does not come from the SMO 4K or the quad itself. That is from a secondary camera that I bring into the editing process so that you know how much noise these quads make. So the punch out there, when you saw that over the house, you may have seen some vibrations. I noticed that as well. That actually gets worse as you get in the lower section of the battery. As the battery capacity continues to drop down when you do those punch outs, I noticed that vibration that is quite subtle at the beginning of the battery actually gets to be very, very noticeable at the end of the battery. So we probably need some voltage sag or VBAT PID attenuation or something that we need to do with the tune there a little bit in order to improve that stability at the end of the battery. Surprisingly to me, as I fly this, it tracks really well. It flies pretty nice. Of course, for something that's 2.5-inch prop and the props are so close together in that 78mm wheelbase, it flies a little bit differently than, you know, an unprop protected sort of quad running the same props at a much lower weight. But, you know, I'm doing what I can to fly it around. I crashed it plenty, but I want to give you a sample. I couldn't get the camera tilt way up, so this isn't necessarily a speed run with an external HD camera. It's as much camera angle as I could get running that SMO 4K, which does have that kind of that nodule that comes out of the back of the camera and then hits your battery that's toilet tanked across the back side of that. So hopefully this gives you some idea of what you can do with an external HD camera on top of this thing, so that, you know, if you are out flying and you need to go a little bit faster, this is about all you're going to get with at least the SMO 4K on top and a 650 milliamp 4S battery. That's as far back as you can lean, so you want whatever it is you're out flying and chasing to be in your shot. So there's only a limited amount of camera angle that you're going to get. But I wanted to be able to show that stuff to you and show you some of the agility things, even as poorly as I might be flying this thing. Show you what I can do with it so that if you decide to build one or buy one, you'll have a pretty good idea what to expect. Sad news, the swing set is gone. That has been demoed and it has been removed. It was pretty rotten and getting to be a little bit of a hazard. So I'm sure something will be going out in the yard, and I'll have to figure out some more flight fun to have out in that section, and we'll figure out as time goes by. But that's pretty much the end of this flight. yeah, only getting about 2 minutes on that battery of fast flying. Okay, so now we are out here and we are doing the same run. This is, of course, the analog version that I have here. This does come in an HD version, as I mentioned in the quick specs. So this is with the camera angle cranked up a little bit more so I can test the speed and agility. The video reception on this isn't great. I have a feeling that I actually damaged it. We can talk about that when we get back to the desk. So unfortunately, I have to tell you, don't judge the video reception by this video. We can get into the details about that back at the desk, but yeah, the video reception I wasn't impressed with, especially when I got up over the house and it is running 800 milliwatts. Although the VTX table was odd because they had the label for 800 milliwatts in the VTX table twice. Of course, it had the same value, so it should have worked, but I found it very curious that it was in there twice. And you can see we're already getting low battery warnings with the camera angle cranked up. Of course, you can run a bigger battery. Again, I'm doing the 650 on there because I'm trying to go fast and agile, and I'm trying to test this as far as what you should be able to expect if you go out flying this thing and you want to go fast and maybe see how well it does. Of course, I get tangled up there in the greenery over there as I was going around the fence line area there, kind of weaving in and out of stuff. That was something that I found quite often when I was trying to do this test, and I think I was trying too hard to push things, is that I would get tied up and I would crash. So the number of crashes that I had, yeah, they're fairly significant. Unfortunately, I did damage my SMO 4K lens as well. I crashed on the patio, this cement pad around the pool, and it did nick that up. So I don't know. I'm tempted to try to polish that out, but I'm down to my last HD camera, so I might have to just leave it be so we can at least test with that external load in upcoming videos. But we're almost to 2 minutes and low battery screaming at us. That's probably a pretty decent sample. I think I'm going to fly the battery down a little bit too far as I get a touch over 2 minutes, and you're going to probably hear my battery just screaming at me, need to come in and stop and do something about the low battery voltage. Oh, it's coming back up. It's coming back up as I almost take my neck out there. So yeah, it puts a pretty heavy demand on your batteries. But you can always go up to a larger milliamp battery and fly a little bit longer if you want to do that sort of flying. Okay, now that we've seen the flight footage, I have an admission to make. I have 2 of these, and I missed launch day because I put one in the pool. It happened. It did happen. I will say that I phrased that wrong. I didn't put it in the pool, but yeah, I had an FR Sky RXSR, fail-safed, bounced off the pad, bloop, right into the water, killed it. I've got at least 2 burn motors. Doesn't power on at all. Yes, I did unplug it in there. No, I did not film myself getting it out. I was dumbfounded because I had actually made that same pass. This was when I'm doing the slow cruisy testing. As you may know on the channel, I do a lot of flights for these quads. I don't tend to just do one and try to put the video together. So I had made that pass probably 7 times prior, and it was just fine. Matter of fact, in some of those flights, I probably went essentially that same path over the backside of the garage and kind of swoop over the pool. Maybe twice in a single flight. But then all of a sudden, randomly one time, everything's changed, and I get right to the edge of the newly constructed part of that roof. RX loss, bounce, bloop. And as soon as I saw it RX loss, I thought, oh no. Had other thoughts, but that's what I'll put here out for the world to listen to. But yeah, I appreciate the fact that SpeedyBee, when I told them this, was like, hey, I had a failsafe, went right into the pool. They quickly sent another one out, so I appreciate that in order to allow me to continue to test, because I had not gotten to my faster flying yet to see how this did. So that's something I do appreciate. And for those of you that had the in the pool bingo or wet drone bingo going, somebody probably won. It wasn't me, because I thought it would take much, much longer, because I don't plan to fly over that when it's not covered unless I was doing the slow sort of get your shot sort of flying. And I would have never thought an RXSR would have fail-safe so close. But it did. And that's why we need to be on Express LRS, and that's why I have one with Express LRS in it. Okay, so there it is. There's the fact of the matter that I put a drone in the pool, and I'm only like 45 days into having the pool. Not much I can do about it, but let's finish up this review. I don't think there is a terrible lot to cover. We've pretty much done it all. You know, we've got the staggered motors in here. We have the overlapping props. Those are factors to consider. We've measured motor post to motor post, which everybody loves me to do. And we've talked about the rigidity of the carbon as well as the flexibility of the bumper or the prop protection, however you want to phrase it or look at it. This does have, you know, this TPU printed that does come just right out to the barely the edge of the camera if you get it at just the right angle. But quite honestly, if this is the only protection you've got, and you hit something that's firm at all, you should bank on the camera getting damaged. At the very least, having to refocus the lens. If those of you that aren't familiar with refocusing the lens, this is a ring right here, and this kind of locks the lens into place. So you have to turn that to unlock it, and then you thread the lens in or out depending upon what you need to focus. Of course, you've got to watch in your goggles. Maybe you have some focus paper printed out, and you can use that. And once you get that lens in the right spot to where the image is nice and crisp and clear, then you lock down with the ring around the lens in order to keep that lens in that position. So if you hit this up here with anything firm, you know, this is just TPU. It's going to flex and move out of the way, and our camera is going to take a hit. There is some possibility if you're flying relatively slow at a minor angle that if you hit here and it doesn't rotate up much, because you normally when you have a direct on impact, it rotates up. Tell me how I know that. But this would provide you much more protection than will the TPU up here, but still, this is below your camera, and usually when you have a frontal impact, if you're not coming down at it, you're going to roll up. Unless, I guess, you're flying backwards, then you would be rolling the other way. But anyways, you know, I had these crashes that kind of nicked up this prop guard all over the place here, and I'll show you my SMO 4K. We've got at least one scratch right there, maybe a second one. Yeah, it feels like a second one right there. So unfortunately, my little camera took some hits as well off the cement. The backyard has become a lot more hazardous. I guess that's a good thing for those of you that are flying in harsh areas, that, you know, you have crashes where stuff breaks and I have crashes where it doesn't, because now I'm getting a lot more concrete into my flying area. Of course, if you're going to build one, you might be interested to know that it can do the flight stacks. Of course, you're not going to be able to get very high in your flight stack. Maybe get two boards in there. You're still going to be squirreling your VTX back here away if that's what you need to do, but you can do, looks like 16 by 16 and 20 by 20 mounting there. And I kind of, it caught me off at first, because at first I was using my naked GoPro, which did die in the pool crash as well. And I did not know that that port was set up to actually control the recording. So I was going through the process of plugging it in and pressing the button on the camera and waiting for it to flash and then hit and record. And then I would arm and I would fly. And then I would come back and it would be off. Like, what the heck is going off? And then I'd come inside and I'd check the SD card, and it only had like the first segment. Like as soon as I armed the quad, it would stop the recording. Well, it's because it was trying to control that. And it took me like 5 or 6 flights to figure that out. So anyway, so I tested with these two cameras as far as being able to connect the cameras to that port and it working. Basically, when you arm the quad, then the recording starts, provided that, you know, your camera's fully booted up. Because like this one, it takes, you know, almost 2 minutes for this thing to boot up and be ready to record. And you probably have to turn them on too, because I think I turned them on. In both cases, you have to turn them on. This only controls that function of recording, stopping, and starting. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Pretty certain that's what it is. And as you can see here, they both kind of bump out the back. So when you have it mounted here, unless you get a specialty mount that maybe you put your mount in here, but the actual camera is held out here. You know, I was running into limitations where this was then hitting into the back of or in the front of the battery, so I couldn't get a lot of camera angle. So in order to go fast, I had to take the cameras off. This one doesn't work anymore anyways. I guess I can use this for dummy weight. Maybe it's repairable, I don't know. But for a cinewhoop, I thought it flew quite well, and I think that's one of the things about this style of quads. Some people are really not a fan, and I know that I'll hear from a few of you, and I understand not every quad is for everyone, but there has got to be a subsection of FPVers out there that are looking for a quad with prop protection and also looking for it to fly better. Because when we first started seeing these with the big, thick foam bumpers, they flew pretty bad. They improved a little bit over time, but as more and more iterations we've worked through, we've seen different prop protection designs. they're flying a far lot better in the last year and a half, maybe even as far back as 2 years than they were the first few iterations. So there's got to be a market out there that is quite popular because these companies keep revisiting them. And if you want to take a look at this one or the version that is DJI based, I will have links down in the video description where you can check it out at the SpeedyBee website or any other reseller that is selling the Flex25. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.